My name is Diana Lopez, and this is Medusa's Awakening Podcast. Trigger warning. This episode might address sensitive subjects that may be distressing for some listeners. Topics discussed include violence, sexual violence, childhood abuse, mental health issues, and substance abuse. Please be mindful of your own well-being while listening. If you find these topics triggering or difficult, seek support from a mental health professional or a trusted individual. We thank you for listening. And we are back. Okay, so in the intro episode, I talked about giving perspective to people's perception. So in this episode, I would like to walk through that with you all. So first, let me introduce my son, Ulysses. Hi, son. How are you doing?
Good. I'm very good.
Good. How are you feeling about coming on here and doing some of these episodes with me?
I'm feeling pretty good because we've been talking about this for a year and a half now.
Yeah, it has been quite a long time where we kind of went in and out discussing it, how it's going to pan out, where we're going to do it. Is we got so far into the weeds of the how and the when that we just forgot about just picking up and doing it and leaving all the rest of that behind.
I mean, we were supposed to originally do it in Washington, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think we talked about when we were still living up in Washington State, before moving back down to California, doing some of these episodes and just, I don't know, just talking about things that people kind of forget to talk about, like things that matter to us and things that matter in our community. So now we have a way that we're actually going to do it, and I don't know, I have a good feeling about it. I think it's going to be great. Having you on some of these episodes is definitely going to be eye-opening, especially when we talk about things that matter to kids, that especially boys and men. These boys have to grow up into men in our society, and working as an advocate for victims and survivors of human trafficking, it's just so apparent how less and less resources we have for boys and men who are struggling in different aspects of life. So there are some good resources out there, though, that help kids that don't necessarily have father figures in their life, how to raise them into men. And we'll probably get to that in some of the other episodes. But this episode, we want to talk about perception and perspective, how people's perception of things may not necessarily be completely accurate. So, or maybe they're just not having all the facts. So anyways, so did you get a chance to check out the Olympics at all? Did you watch any of the?
Hardly any.
Yeah, be honest, neither did I.
Yeah. It's kind of weird because, mostly I'm not really into international sports that way.
Yeah.
Especially, the World Cup and, many others. I mean, I hardly watched the World Cup last year, but, I watched some.
Yeah.
But it was kind of boring as-ish.
Yeah. I mean, well, I feel like when you were smaller, you were really into the international soccer leagues and things like that. And when I say smaller, you weren't even that younger. You weren't even that much younger. But
12 or something like that.
Yeah, but I feel like because maybe you were playing soccer at that time or something like that, it just seemed more exciting. But I think a lot of sports might be having issues with keeping fans in their fan base.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so I think that they're trying to do things to bring people back and give them, I don't know, a better experience maybe.
And there is a bunch of hilarious stuff that happened. The running ceremony where Snoop Dogg just ran the torch.
Yeah.
That's a first.
Hey, I don't mind Snoop Dogg being the person that represents the U.S. He can definitely represent California. What did you catch any of the opening ceremony? Did you?
Yeah, I only catch only one at least, but especially the blue painted guy and all that.
Oh, I didn't watch it. So
yeah, I saw it. It's kind of it's kind of, it was something at least.
I heard one of your favorite bands, Gojira, got to perform in the opening ceremony.
Yes, it is.
Did you get a chance to check that out?
I mean, not when it first came out. I had to check it out like 2 days later for it to upload onto YouTube.
Oh, you had to wait for it. Yeah,
because obviously I can't watch it on TV because like I don't have NBC or anything.
Yeah. Okay, so when you did get around to watching it, though, what was all the hype? Like, I know a lot of people had plenty to say about it because, first of all, it's a metal band.
Yeah.
Right?
On national television.
On national television doing the opening ceremony. So it's probably music that not a lot of people, especially, older people,
Yeah, pretty much
be interested
older people,
in listening to. I mean, unless you, as a youth, grew up listening to metal music, which is, just fine by me.
Yeah.
But anyway, but apparently there was all this backlash, right? There was like,
Yeah, there was.
It was like satanic music. People were calling it like all these things, but like, what was it? Like, what was the whole thing about? Like, first of all, what was the name of the song?
I think it was A Sera, which is a cover song to the Sera, which is a French Revolution song that was actually made during that time period, though. And I think it was more a debacle about like how the entire revolution began, and towards where they execute a bunch of royalists, because that's pretty much what the poor were dealing with, was how like they were seen as like this, about the pyramid scheme. It's kind of like that, but it's layers of how society in France was. There was like,
oh yeah,
the royalists, the kings, and then like the poor, which is the peasants in France.
Right. There was really like no middle class. You were either rich or you were either poor.
Yeah, that's
right?
pretty much how it was.
Yeah.
So they decided the people with lower class wanted to take their own hand of power and then try to make it France like a country where pretty much the lower class and a higher class get the same power as well, which is kind of like how, how America came to be. Like, they never had a king or anything. Right. I mean, they had the president.
We don't have those like royalist systems here in the U.S.
Yeah, they had the president, which his dedication is to his people.
Right.
But where it is to other countries, the king and like queens and all the royalists, they don't have to dedicate their power to the people. They have to dedicate their power to their own country,
right,
and try to expand it so that it can be even bigger.
Right. Well, and that's a way for them to become richer, right? So
yeah,
we kind of have that system here, but it's not known as king and queen. It's just known as the elite.
Yeah, pretty much.
The one percenters.
Yeah.
So the song that they actually sang was, they just redid a song that was
made it its own version.
Yeah, and was born out of the Revolutionary era. The blood and all that, like, because I didn't see it and I don't know how many other people saw it, and my understanding is people were like, what the hell is this type of thing. But from what I hear, it was just all based on historical facts, right?
Yeah, because obviously we saw a beheading Marie Antoinette, and they actually performed in the same prison that she was held in.
Oh, no way. That's actually really cool. I didn't know that. That's awesome. So in their opening ceremony, they're in the prison that she was at. They showed a version of her getting beheaded, right, while playing this song. And yet people, probably without looking up what the song is, or not realizing what, instead of looking it up and finding out like, okay, why did they put this as an opening ceremony, and realizing the history and the facts behind it, they want to just go, that looks satanic. And like, why? Because of the way the music sounds? Like, what? It's, I think a lot of times when people just get so wrapped up on wanting to find the wrong in everything that they don't understand, right? They would rather go, this is wrong, and so let me find all the reasons why it's wrong, instead of going, let me find the reasons why people would want to choose that, or would want to experience something like that in a way. Like, there's just so many different times in our lives where this comes into play so much, like politics, right? Like I even said, like on this podcast, I don't want to talk about politics because that's all the media talks about nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Especially now we're in an election year, and everybody just seems to be going crazy. And
The terrifying year.
the terrifying year. And I mean, let's be honest, nobody wants to listen to understand anymore. They just want to listen to fight, right? Like they're not trying to understand the other side's point of view. And I realize it can get very frustrating when you're trying to talk to you have two people that look at one thing completely different, and nobody trying to understand each other's point of view kind of gets, and then we just continue to fight and be more apart than trying to come together. What did you think about their performance? Did you think it was cool? Did you like get the whole idea of it, like when you saw it?
Yeah, I definitely got the whole idea of it because, for one, I mean, it makes sense of why they picked them because they are from France. They're really big
Yeah.
in all countries. They're multi-Grammy nominated as well.
Wow.
From and let me say it again, a French metal band,
Yeah.
multi-Grammy nominated.
Yeah.
So it would be obvious why they would pick them.
Right?
Since, like, for one, it's in France.
Yeah.
Their home country is from France. And also, they're huge, which they are from France.
Right.
Which, again, like, have you ever seen, like, any multinational metal band to go big and go multi-Grammy nominated?
Right.
Although there is some that are from different countries. Like, there's no other band that I could think of that, besides, like, Brit from the UK,
Yeah.
because that's where heavy metal was originated from,
Yeah.
because of Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, and all that. But like different countries other than the US, which like grew into like its own version, like I'm surprised that France managed to make a metal band that has become this big.
Yeah. I mean, it really says a lot. Like they really do have a big following. And I mean, honestly, like I didn't know of them until you told me about them. And their songs, like generally, what are their songs about? Like what is it that you like that they represent?
I like how they managed to make their themes about spiritual guiding, and also how they talk about like the environment of the earth and all that.
So they're really big on like how climate change is affecting the planet,
Yeah.
and that's what their song's about. But just because they have these loud metal riffs in them, and
Yeah,
and they're heavy,
and they can't even understand the lyrics and all that.
Yeah, so because people can't understand it, it just sounds satanic, you know?
Yeah.
It's just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, you can definitely see how when people aren't. I don't mean to sound like I'm calling people stupid, but like when you're not educated in something, when you don't find it a way to go, this doesn't sound like something I'd be into, but I'm not going to label it as satanic unless I know for sure like what their words are saying. I mean, because yeah, maybe they can't understand their words, but they can go in and find the lyrics online and be able to like walk through like some of these songs that are, like you said, they're about like the climate and how the climate's affecting the planet type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, what is one of your favorite songs from them?
I mean, I have a few that I can name off of.
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, Flying Whales was one of the first that I've listened by them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I listened to, like, multiple songs from their album From Mars to Cyrus. And one of those are Ocean Planet, From the Sky Backbone, Heaviest Matter of the Universe, and then Where Dragons Dwell. And then another is from their album The Way of All Flesh, which one of them, pretty self-explanatory, Toxic Garbage Island, The Art of Dying, and then there was Vakuti, and then like their opening track. But I can go on and on about them.
So, okay, so what would you say the majority of their songs are usually about? Is it usually about climate change? Because like that Flying Whale sounds like it's probably about what?
It's more of like spiritual guiding, and also talking about like how climate change is affecting the environment, and like the protagonist of the entire story of the album is like trying to, find like a spiritual connection with like something, because
Oh,
he feels like
interesting.
because he kind of feels like he's not having a connection with like society or something like that, and he wants to have like that like connection with nature and all that, but like he notices from like how people are trashing the planet, he
Yeah.
doesn't get that connection anymore. And like,
Wow, that's pretty powerful.
yeah, but like he figures that the living creatures that are not human are like whales, so like he tries to seek them out to like try to get that spiritual connection from them.
And whales are one of the biggest spiritual connections on this planet. I mean, they represent so much spiritually, and they do so much for our ocean that
Yeah.
obviously it's way more important to have them around than to do these research boats that are out there in the middle of the ocean trying to harpoon them and bring them onto their boat for quote unquote research reasons. So it's important to talk about things like whales and in that perspective. That's pretty awesome. Would you say like all of their songs are about that, or do they touch on other things?
They touch on a bunch of things. I mean, there is Amazonia, which is like around that time they wrote that song because of like the destruction of the Amazon rainforest around that time.
Oh wow.
I think it was like in 2020 or 2021. I forgot what that album came out on.
Oh, okay.
But I do know around that time, even like the lead singer even told about what Amazonia was about, and
Yeah.
he even explained the lyrics of it, and it literally, he said that it was all about the destruction of the Amazon rainforest and all like the animal life and their habitats being destroyed,
Yeah.
all because they're just tearing down a bunch of trees down.
Yeah, and within the last few years, they've talked about how the Amazon rainforest the water has declined a lot, and just so many things with logging and people using sugar from the certain trees that are in the Amazon rainforest, and it depletes that natural environment, and then where do the animals go? It'll deplete the animals into extinction. It'll deplete all the resources that we use like for healing out of that region. And it's a constant fight, right? Because it's just like, look at all this lush stuff that is available to us, but we need protectors of those things,
Yeah.
because otherwise people will.
I mean, they're just like willing to not let them like grow out and then, come back to like lumber more, because
Right.
it's just like this one kids movie that I know of that I kind of want to bring up that pretty much self explains it, just because like what they're doing is basically the same thing of what it was happening in the movie,
What movie is that?
the Lorax.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Because
exactly.
like the
Yeah.
guy with the axe started chopping down all the trees, never gave them the chance to grow back,
Exactly.
and then just like at the end he just like knocked down entirely like the entire like the animal life that lived there. He just destroyed their only habitat that
Yeah.
they had.
So they have no choice but to either leave or die,
Yeah, pretty much.
right? And then what does that do with that environment but leave it stagnant, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a huge problem, because everybody's all about, like, the human experience is all about pillaging, right?
Yeah.
Like, you got to pillage everything. But that kind of what leads us to the problems we have today, I guess.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a lot. And it says a lot that, for those that may not necessarily understand heavy metal or want to, because it just doesn't, for them, it just doesn't sound good. And that's fine. I'm not saying everybody has to
I mean, if you're
appreciate metal.
Well, labeling things is a different story, though.
Exactly. But labeling something satanic, like, that's a stretch. I
Yeah.
mean, it definitely a stretch. And again, it's like when people don't understand that they have to look for things that can switch that perspective. Sometimes it's just like their perception of things is when it's not based on, like, when you don't have perspective surrounding it, then you're kind of leaving out more than half of in this case, more than half of the story, right? Because you're labeling something when you're talking about the history of France.
Yeah.
And just because it's a metal band, it's satanic. Make it make sense.
Yeah, make it make sense. I mean, there was one of their earlier songs, although they labeled something that possibly is connected with Satan. And that song is Satan as a Lawyer. But it's not satanic and all that. It's pretty much like, the song is about, like, the power that a lawyer has with, like, their, like, with prosecutors and, like, the victims that are being trialed and all that. Like, it talks about, like, what kind of evil power that a lawyer can have.
Right.
Which is basically, like, the devil's power and all that.
Yeah.
Because, like, it can ruin people's lives or start helping them, but mostly just to ruin people's lives.
Yeah.
Because, like, for one, they feel like the victim is, like, to blame.
Right.
For every, like, crime that is put on them.
Right. That instead of, that's the biggest thing, right, that I see with the anti-human trafficking work and domestic violence work. It's like, you see so many times how people call it the justice system. I call it the criminal system, because oftentimes there is no justice. When you see how women and children are treated with crimes that, that are against women and children, is just really not taken seriously. And then oftentimes, especially with women and our society, they are the ones to be blamed, right? For the longest time, they are the reason that they have to be blamed for, if they were sexually assaulted or insulted in any kind of manner, domestic violence. Like, it's just the understanding of that victim or survivor in front of you and what they've been through. Instead of doing that, it's, who's to blame? Well, you shouldn't have stayed in that situation. Well, why were you drunk then? Like, why did you go drinking then? It's the whole victim blaming thing is it's huge in our, not just in our society, it's worldwide when it comes to women and children.
Yeah,
and it's it's really a sad fact when we have to sit there and, instead of holding these survivors and these victims close to us and holding them up when they need it, instead we're having them, shoved into a witness box, and you explain yourself, and and then oftentimes the people that commit these violent crimes against women and kids, oftentimes they get to represent themselves and get to ask them direct questions. Like, how is that even a thing? Like, I understand that there's a law, like, it's just so much to this, because there's a law that states that you can represent yourself and you have the right to face your accuser. But when your accuser is your victim, and your accuser is somebody who was so violated by you that you get to go and re-traumatize them while they're sitting in that witness box trying to defend their actions, or trying to defend the fact that they were the ones that were victimized and assaulted. When I was in the Seattle office, when we lived up in Washington, I think it was probably, I don't know, a few years in when we first moved there. I remember there was a bunch of police action downstairs. So we were up on the 50-something floor, and we were able to look down, and right across the street is the King County Courthouse. And I remember one time just looking down and watching this woman get on top of the roof of the courthouse, and there's like this connecting pathway, but she didn't get on the roof of the courthouse to go onto the pathway. She was on top of the pathway, because it was like, I think it was at the time, no, I still think it's in use now, actually. There is a jail that's 2 blocks up, so the pathway connected the jail across the city hall across to the courthouse. So that was the way for them to move prisoners back and forth from the jail to King County Courthouse. So she wasn't inside the actual thing, she was on top of it. And what wound up coming to light was she was a survivor of a sexual assault, but she's an adult survivor of an assault that from this, I don't know if it was like the mom's boyfriend or her stepdad or something like that, but he didn't have a lawyer. Instead, he was going to question her on what he did to her. So she had to relive what he did to her and answer to him about that. These laws just need to change. Like, I cannot believe that is allowed. Like, everything's just like, nope, well, he has a right to face his accuser. Okay, but let's just redo this because this law doesn't make any sense. Like, she was so traumatized at the thought of him having to even speak to him that she ran out of the courtroom, got on the roof, jumped onto this long walkway on top of the long walkway, clearly putting herself in danger. They had to shut down all the streets. Like, it took them a little bit to even try to convince her to come down. And I'm just like, how many survivors and victims have to go through this? They would rather not, right? And I can't blame them. Why would I want to be so traumatized, have to relive that trauma first of all, and then have to relive it and explain to the person that did that to me my trauma, what trauma you caused me and how you did it to me? Like, there needs to be new laws. There needs to be new ways to do this, because there just can't be, with the amount of sexual violence and amount of sexual assault, molestations that happen in our society to women, boys, girls. Like, you mean to tell me that they still get the right to re-traumatize that person? Like, this is why people don't want to go to the police. This is why people don't want to go into the court system. It's not a justice system. It's a criminal system, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways, that is my rant for today. Are there any additional thoughts you would like to say to the listeners out there?
There is one thing that I want to talk about real
Sure.
quick. Although this is all due to, like, the misconception about, like, people's opinions on all that. I mean, since we're talking about, like, how Gojira is being labeled wrong, let's talk about how the recent movie, well, not technically recent, this happened a month ago, the Deadpool and the Wolverine movie.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah,
Honestly,
that's another one. Okay, but without giving anything away, right?
I'm not spoiling anything. I'm just saying, this is just, like, what I heard, just, like, from reviewers and all that.
Okay. What was it?
Most thing was since they labeled Gojira wrong, which I believe was, like, on the same month.
Yeah.
I think, like, like a few days later, people, like, Christians, literally labeled the Deadpool movie as satanic as well.
Oh, wow.
Because they put in the part of Deadpool saying he was Marvel Jesus.
Oh, because he was... I know. So...
And they called him... It was called blasphemy and all that. I'm like... It was in the trailer.
Yeah, like, why did you go see it if you didn't watch the trailer? Like,
I mean...
Did you not go... Well, first of all, have they not seen any other Deadpool movies?
Because
we know how... I don't know why the word trashy comes to mind, because it's not trashy. I'm a big fan of Deadpool. I'm a big fan of Wolverine. But I'm saying, like, if you think the jokes in that movie are too much for you because they make you feel uncomfortable, like, you don't go to the movie to see it just to walk out of it, just to go back online and then say and say it was blasphemy and do this and this. And honestly, I feel like too many people come out and say things like that in the name of Christianity, when a lot of Christians I know enjoy his movie because they know it's a joke, you know? And
even like some people's comments about, like, some of the videos that I've seen literally said that they are Christian and they love the movie because they find that part of that line a joke. Because, like, for one, he didn't clearly said he was Jesus. He literally said two different words, which means two different things, saying he was Marvel Jesus because, like, you know, he can basically, in that movie situation, basically grant him the power of, like, control of Marvel itself.
Right.
Like, he can rewrite any type of story in Marvel because, for one, he can go through other dimensions or different timelines. So,
Right.
like, clearly, it's basically kind of like Jesus' powers.
Interesting. Yeah. You know, at the end of the day, it's all supposed to be in fun, and you know, if
Yeah.
you are not out there to enjoy it, or if it's, I mean, and honestly, yes, the jokes in Deadpool's movies could be entirely too much for certain people, but like, know that going in, then, you know that about yourself,
Yeah.
and just don't waste your money. How about that?
Yeah.
Anyways, okay, son, it was really great doing this episode with you. I really
Yep.
appreciate your thoughts and helping me with everything regarding perception and perspective. And we hope that the listeners will come back and listen to more episodes.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Medusa's Awakening podcast. Stay up to date on new episodes by following, liking, and subscribing to our pages. We are on Instagram at Medusas_Awakening, on YouTube at Medusa's Awakening, and on TikTok at Awakening_Medusa_podcast.